Imagine making one of the most creative sci-fi shows in history, building a loyal fan base, running for 4 seasons, getting a special mini-series to wrap up the story, a fan base that's been asking for more for over 2 decades, but somehow they still haven't managed to get a new project off the ground, because that's exactly what happened to Farscape, a show with living spaceships, escaped prisoners, practical effects, animatronic aliens. It has the kind of wild imagination that puts modern sci-fi to shame, yet here we are, more than 2 decades later, still talking about what might have been, still hearing rumours, still hearing pitches, still hearing about possible continuations, and still getting absolutely nowhere. The really strange part, the biggest obstacle, might not even be what you think. Back in 1999, science fiction television was in a very healthy place. You had Star Trek, you had Babylon 5, you had Stargate, then Farscape arrived and decided to do its own thing. John Crichton wasn't a military commander, he wasn't a chosen one, he wasn't a genius who always had the answer. He was just an astronaut thrown across the galaxy, spending most of his time trying not to die. That alone made him different. Then there was Moya, not a spaceship, a living spaceship. The crew weren't explorers, they weren't diplomats, they weren't heroes. Most of them were fugitives, escaped prisoners, outcasts, people who didn't trust each other, at least not at first, and that's before we even get to the aliens. Farscape embraced weirdness in a way very few shows ever have. Characters looked alien, acted alien, thought differently. The universe felt strange and unpredictable. You never quite knew where an episode was going, and that unpredictability became one of the show's biggest strengths. Then you had the incredible work done by the Jim Henson Company. Characters like Rygel and Pilot weren't CGI creations. They were physical performances, complex animatronics, puppetry, practical effects, real craftsmanship. Even now, those characters feel real in a way modern CGI just can't match. Unfortunately, creativity doesn't always protect a show. In 2003, Farscape was cancelled, and fans were not happy. In fact, they were furious. The timing couldn't have been worse. The story wasn't finished, the characters weren't finished, the audience certainly wasn't finished. The series ended with a huge cliffhanger, then suddenly it was over. Thankfully, the fan campaign became one of those rare success stories. The pressure worked. The Peacekeeper Wars was eventually produced and gave the story a proper conclusion, and honestly, that alone was a small miracle. Many cancelled science fiction shows never get that opportunity. But while the Peacekeeper Wars wrapped things up, it never really felt like the end of the universe. There were still stories to tell, still places to explore, still characters people wanted to spend time with, which naturally led to one question: when are we getting more? This is where things become classic Hollywood. For years, we've heard about possible returns, possible movies, possible continuations, possible new series, possible streaming deals, possible pitches, lots of possibilities, very little reality. Every few years, another story would appear. A creator would mention discussions, a cast member would talk about interest, a producer would suggest conversations were happening, fans would get excited, then nothing. The project would quietly disappear. One of the biggest rumours was a movie focused entirely on John and Aeryn's son, and the fan reaction was, let's call it, cautious. Many viewers weren't interested in replacing the original crew. They wanted more time with the characters they already loved: John Crichton, Aeryn's son, Dargo, Chiana, the crew of Moya. Not a next generation handover, not another passing the torch story. Eventually that project faded away too. Like so many projects in Hollywood, it entered development hell and never escaped. The strange thing is, interest has never completely disappeared. Fans still care. The cast have repeatedly spoken about returning. The creators have discussed ideas. Nobody seems actively opposed to more Farscape. So what's the problem? Money. Unfortunately, money usually wins. Farscape was expensive 20 years ago. Today, it would probably be even more expensive. Those incredible practical effects weren't cheap. The makeup wasn't cheap. The creatures weren't cheap. The animatronics weren't cheap. Characters like Rygel and Pilot required entire teams to operate. Every scene involved time, planning, specialists. equipment, and all of that costs money. Lots of money. Modern streaming companies are already becoming cautious with expensive genre television. We've watched numerous science fiction and fantasy projects get cancelled despite loyal fan bases. Studios want guaranteed returns. Farscape represents risk, and executives aren't keen on risk. Honestly, I kept asking myself that exact question while editing this video. If somebody walked into a studio tomorrow and pitched Farscape from scratch, would it even get made? Honestly, I'm not sure. The television landscape has changed dramatically. Budgets are under pressure, studios are more cautious, streaming services are chasing wider audiences, and Farscape was never designed to be safe. It was weird. Sometimes very weird. That's exactly why fans loved it. But it's also exactly the sort of thing executives often struggle to understand. Ironically, the very things that made Farscape great would probably kill it today. And that's a depressing thought, because originality should be rewarded, not treated as a liability. Now here's where some people might completely disagree with me. I think animation may be the best chance Farscape has, not because live action wouldn't be amazing, it absolutely would, but because animation removes so many of those barriers. Look at modern animation, the scale, the quality, the storytelling, the visual ambition. Animation can create entire alien worlds without building expensive physical sets. Massive space battles become achievable. Strange creatures become easier, exotic locations become possible every single episode. Most importantly, animation allows the universe to continue, and surely that's better than letting it sit untouched forever. The heart of Farscape wasn't just the puppets, it wasn't just the makeup, it wasn't just the effects, it was the characters, it was the relationships, it was the imagination. If a high quality animated series could capture that magic, I'd happily give it a chance, because the alternative seems to be endless waiting. Looking back, Farscape feels like one of those rare shows that genuinely earned its cult status. Creative, original, unpredictable, a little bit mad, and all the better for it. The fact that we're still talking about it decades later says everything. Very few science fiction series leave that kind of impression. What's frustrating is that nobody seems to want it gone. The fans don't, the cast don't, the creators don't, and yet somehow the franchise remains stuck in limbo, waiting for somebody to take the risk, waiting for somebody to write the check, waiting for someone to realise that the old Leviathan still has life left in her. But what do you think? Would you watch a new Farscape continuation? Would it have to be live action? Or would you happily watch an animated version if it meant seeing John Crichton and the crew of Moya again? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy revisiting classic science fiction, forgotten franchises, and the strange decisions that keep great shows trapped in development limbo, consider subscribing, because sometimes the biggest nonsense isn't what gets made, it's what never gets made at all. Anyway, I'll see you next time.